Today we celebrate a feast of Saint Jerome. Jerome is my favorite saint. So everybody has some favorites, right? Some likes. So he is my favorite saint, but I came to know only 12 years back. This love towards Jerome increased 12 years back. If you remember first day when I celebrated Mass, so I was very emotional here in Nirmala convent. I remembered Sister Laura and then other MSA sisters also. So when I was going to Rome in 2010, I went and met her. So sister, I joined seminary, 1 year finished, now I am going for philosophy to Rome. Then sister is naturally happy, so excited. I was praying and finally I could see that day and all that thing. Then she said, okay, when you go to St. Peter's Basilica, you go to the altar of St. Jerome, because blessed John 23rd body is kept there. So she likes blessed John 23rd, now Saint John 23rd. Maybe when she was studying, maybe he was the Pope. Hopefully. So that's how her devotion. So whenever you go to the John 23rd, whenever you enter into the St. Peter's Basilica, you go to the John 23rd altar and you pray for me there. So I kept till last year also, till 2021 also, whenever I visit, I make sure that I go to the John 23rd altar, I pray, and I remember this word, I just pray for Sister Laura also. But when I reached this John 23rd, you see a big altar, like St. Jerome's altar it is. And this person is not like very gloriously pictured. Maybe this person is almost like Job in today's first reading, very suffering, very pathetic, and very troubled, almost near to death. So, but for that kind of a person, some people are coming and giving the viaticum, that last sacrament, maybe. So I was curious, like why such a glorious church, St. Peter's Basilica, so big. Why this kind of a picture they kept? Then I started going close to the altar and seeing. Then I heard that it's a Jerome altar. And Pope John 23rd, he used to pray to St. Jerome. Pope Jerome, Pope John 23rd is called as a good Pope, who has done so many revolutionary acts, Second Vatican Council and all other things. But he has a devotion to St. Jerome. That's why after his death and before his beatification, his body was moved to that altar. So over the years, I started learning more about this saint. Now we have the access for Bible. Everybody can have in different forms. But in those days, Bible is accessible only for few people, very rich people who are learned, because not everybody know writing and reading. So only few people in the monasteries, maybe in the king courts, accessibility is very less. And Jerome has a passion to bring this Bible to the common people, and that's how he took that work, and it was officially given by the church, Pope Damasus. He was also secretary, as a priest, he was secretary to Pope Damasus in the 4th century. And then he wrote Bible in Latin, Vulgate. Then another important thing about St. Jerome is, like during those time in the 4th century, we don't have the convents, like religious life for women. Priesthood is there and not all priests are celibate. All this is the story of the church. And St. Jerome is the one person who started, in a sense, we can say like monasteries for women. Till that time, we don't have a special. There are people maybe living celibate in their own way, but not officially. But his disciples, the noble women in Rome, he takes special he took special responsibility to teach them scriptures, and people followed. People followed, and he established monasteries for the women also in Jerusalem. So finally, in his death, he went to Jerusalem. In Bethlehem, he died. And when we go to the Bethlehem, the Nativity Chapel, we have Saint Jerome's chapel side by where he was, where he died in that place. Jerome gives this famous quote: "Ignorance of Scripture is ignorance of Christ." So, if you don't know the Bible, we don't know the Christ. That is what he preaches. And he defended the faith. He defended the faith when people interpreted Bible in different ways, the early heresies. And church fathers, doctors always refer what Jerome has written on the Bible. What is the opinion of Jerome is sought in even other doctors of the church, Augustine or even other contemporaries. They always used to refer. So God has given him wisdom and he used it. But in spite of all these things, we have 4 Western doctors and fathers of the church, and 4 Eastern fathers of the church. All these 7 of them are bishops, except one is Pope also, Pope Gregory the Great. In the Western church, Augustine, Ambrose, Augustine, and Pope Gregory the Great. Only Jerome is a priest. He is attributed with cardinal, but in his time he was never a cardinal. The cardinal institution starts maybe after very late, maybe after 8th or 9th century. Jerome is a difficult person to keep in with the people. Though he has a passion, so he is not a person who can live at peace. Because if something goes wrong, immediately he points out and he corrects, and he scolds, he shouts, he fights, all these things. So he had a fight with other saints also, Saint Jerome and and Augustine, Saint Jerome and Ambrose, contemporaries. They had their own fights. And finally, he goes and he lives in hermit life. Only alone he is living. So now in Job also we see all his friends, wife, everybody lives. He is living alone. But story is different. But at the end he is alone. Job and Jerome, he is living alone in the forest. So it happened that one day one lion comes to Jerome. So naturally when a lion comes, everybody will run away. And that lion is going everywhere and people were running away. So nobody is coming close to what is the matter, coming close to the lion. But Jerome, he is neither afraid of men or animals. So naturally, even if lion comes, he is not afraid. So then this lion comes and Jerome asks, what do you want? Why you came? Then this lion shows her palm like this. Then Jerome notices that one of the hand is bleeding. Jerome, and you need help. Okay, come. Then he removes that pin and he put the bandage. Lion wants help. It is going to different people. It entered into the village and the villagers were running away because seeing the lion. But Jerome is not a person to afraid anything. So it came and it ran. Then from then onwards, this lion remained as a pet dog. So when we see Jerome, very few photos we see him in exalted dress with red clothes and all. Very few clothes. But most of the time without shirt, like very shabby, means like a Gandhiji, like in the olden days, how without a shirt. He will be pictured like that. But most of the times there is a lion which is kept beside him. It is also said that a lion also represents Jerome. He is such a ferocious, angry man. But this lion looks very calm, and it is very tamed and very soft. It says that that image represents Jerome was like that, but he could tame that anger, and then he became soft and gentle. So for me, Jerome gives that encouragement, that hope. Even I too can become saint. We too can become saints. We are all simple people. Maybe we get angry, we shout, we fight, we quarrel. But we are called, and we question sometimes why still I am like this. But we have to work our own things, and God called remains. God is called, He is there. His call remains, and He loves us. But we also should tame our lion or lioness inside us. Then we will reach to the heights of this holiness. So let us ask His intercession that that He help us to tame our weakness, to attain that saintliness, especially recognizing Jesus in the sacred scripture.
Today we are celebrating the feast of Saint Jerome, 30th September. The story of Saint Jerome goes like this. After being secretary to Pope Damasius, he moved to Bethlehem, the nativity place, and he found a monastery, and there he was buried. When he was in monastery, one day one lion came, and naturally when we see a lion, it is so terrifying. So all the monks started running, but Jerome is a strong man, and he will not fear anyone. So he called the lion. He started speaking to lion. What do you want? Then lion showed her palm, and Jerome noticed that lion is bleeding. Blood is coming from the palm. So Jerome understood this lion needs help. So he started helping the lion, putting bandage, and slowly this lion became friend of Jerome, and it stayed till the death. Naturally, when we see image of Saint Jerome, most of the pictures we see a lion beside Jerome. It is also said that the lion represents Jerome itself. We know lion is a symbol of ferocity. Like lion, Saint Jerome was very hot-tempered, but when we see a lion pictured along with Jerome, we see a different kind of a lion, very soft, gentle, sorrowful lion. Saint Jerome is a contemporary of many saints. He is 10 years less than Saint Ambrose and 10 years elder than Saint Augustine. And Saint Jerome is very famous for his positive criticism, especially when the faith is questioned. Nobody can stop Jerome. One of the famous quote of Saint Jerome, ignorance of scripture is ignorance of Christ. You might have heard many times, but Saint Augustine says, whatever Saint Jerome is ignorant of, no mortal has studied that. One of the finest minds of Christianity, it is said, he traveled to Antioch and to Constantinople, and there he met Saint Gregory the Nazianzus and the Gregory of Nyssa and Saint Basil. Saint Jerome is one of the 4 doctors of the Western Church who was quoted even in the Eastern churches. He is a friend of Saint Gregory Nazianzus, and we see some pictures of Saint Jerome conversing along with Saint Basil the Great and Saint Gregory of Nazianzus. Most of the times he was pictured along with Saint Augustine and Saint Ambrose, Gregory the Great, the four doctors of the Western Church. Saint Jerome learned ancient languages, Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, especially to come out from the temptations of the world. And later, it helped him to translate the sacred scriptures from the original languages, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, to Latin, Vulgate, which was the standard Bible for many centuries. And St. Jerome is also commented the Bible. Jerome commentary is one of the famous. He is also patron for librarians, archaeologists. But Jerome is also known for his hot temper. It is said it is difficult to win an argument with Jerome because he will go to any extent to prove his point, to defend the faith. He used to fight with the heresies during his time. In Rome, we find relics of Saint Jerome in Basilica Maria Maggiore. We also have two churches dedicated to Saint Jerome. One is Saint Jerome of Charity, where it is said during his stay in Rome as a secretary to Pope Damasus, he stayed in that place. Now we have a church dedicated to Saint Jerome. It is also believed that Saint Philip Neri, when he came to Rome, he stayed in the same place. We have another church dedicated to Saint Jerome in Rome, the Church of Saint Jerome. It is also called Croatian Church, which has Saint Jerome's Collegio. For me, especially, I believe we are all called to be saints. God calls us in spite of our weakness, in spite of our shortcomings. God calls each one of us to holiness and to be saints. Saint Jerome has fought with temptations. He overcome his shortcomings, his hot temper. He is also patron for anger management, which most of us suffer. Whenever I look Saint Jerome, he gives me courage, encouragement that there is a hope, that we can overcome. Even though Saint Jerome is so strong on the mistake of other people, he was much more stronger to do penance for his own shortcomings. Let the zeal of Saint Jerome drive us to know the Bible and to live the call of holiness in our day-to-day life. May Saint Jerome intercede for each one of us. God bless you.